What's up, everyone? Welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Chris. So it's time to talk about what I read for the month of April. I did have a very good month. I got through 12 books this month. That's a lot. It's also a rarity. Pretty much don't normally get through that many books in a month. It was just kind of the way the month was laid out for me. I had a lot of time, idle time, we'll say, where I was able to listen for long stretches of time while I was doing things. So I don't expect to get 12 books a month on the regular because that's a lot. It was a good month. I pretty much enjoyed everything I read. And yeah, so I'm excited to talk about it. So let's go ahead and get this started. All right, so the first book I read this month was Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. And I have to say, she is quickly becoming a favorite author. This is the third book I've read by her. And so far, I've loved every book I've read. I like the mysteries that she writes and the twists that she puts into her stories. I enjoy a good twist in a story, and lots of twists, ones that you don't see coming. And this book was no exception. I did not see the twist coming. I can't tell you why it surprised me that I didn't see it coming, because then I would spoil the whole book. Anyway, this book is kind of modeled after, or is like a cousin maybe to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, which I have recently downloaded to start reading. I didn't read that book yet. I may have to pick that one book up shortly and open it up and listen to it soon. So yeah, it has that And Then There Were None vibe to it. Really good. Anyway, Daisy Darker. All right, Daisy Darker is a person. So the book starts out, she is going to be meeting up with all her family members at her grandmother's house. It's based on a tiny island off the Cornish coast or something like that. And so it's kind of like a private island for her grandmother's 80th birthday party. Now, it's a very dysfunctional family. So every person in the family has secrets. And Daisy has always felt like kind of like the unnoticed one, the one that really, nobody pays much attention to, or she was like babied a lot as a child because she was born with a broken heart. That's how they describe it in the book. Basically, she had some heart issue. So anyway, they're all meeting up for the grandmother's birthday. And when the high tide comes in, it's 8 hours before anybody could leave. So it's October 30th. Everybody's gathered, and the tide's in now, so nobody can go anywhere. So they're kind of stuck with each other, right? And the grandmother is happy to have all her family there. And her birthday is Halloween. So on the eve of her birthday, at the stroke of midnight, grandma's found dead. And that's where the story takes off. Who killed her? And slowly people start dying. So the whole time you're kind of like, okay, who's doing this? It's weird, and all these little things, little clues are being left, and it's kind of like the game of Clue too. There's the kitchen, and there's the music room, and the study, and the living room. It was just good. So throughout the book, you're learning all the dislikes of what you would dislike about every one of these people in this book. You know, she's got two sisters, her niece is there, her father and mother who are no longer together. And they're all just not nice people. So, yeah. So it starts out like that, and the book carries through of everybody there trying to figure out who killed her. Because nobody can get on the island, right? It's high tide. And it's going to be high tide for 8 hours. So yeah, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was fantastic. Definitely giving it 4.5 stars. It was fun. I love the character of Daisy. Daisy had some secrets too, but I liked her. And yeah. So I don't know. Has anybody read Daisy Darker? What are your thoughts on it? You know, do you have a favorite Alice Feeney book? I don't know which one I'm going to read next. I don't know. But I'm definitely going to pick up more from her because I'm really, really liking her stories. Yeah, they're good. So anyway, looks like April is off to a good start. Let's see how the rest of the month goes, right? Anyway, all right, so let me know. Have you read Daisy Darker? What did you think? Do you think maybe it'd be something you'd be interested in? If you like a good mystery, I would highly suggest Daisy Darker. It was good. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this second book that I read. All right, let's go ahead and talk about this next book I read. Next book I read is A Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. Great book, you guys. I'm going to start right there. I enjoyed it. It's a good thriller. It does come with some trigger warnings, so we'll start there. Trigger warnings would be some rape, domestic abuse or violence, and child harm. Putting that aside. All right, so Angela Wong is a beautiful, outgoing, popular 16-year-old girl in high school, and she goes missing. She's got her best friend, Georgina, or Geo, and Geo knows what happened to her, but doesn't tell anybody. So 14 years go by, and Angela's remains get discovered buried in the woods behind Geo's house. And the detective on the case, his name is Kaiser, was best friends as well with Geo and Angela. They were like a trio. And Kaiser's always been in love with Geo, and you know how that goes, but anyway. So Kaiser finds that the person that murdered Angela was a man or a boy named Calvin. Now, Calvin was Geo's first true love back 14 years ago when she was 16 years old. And he's not the nicest guy, but she's madly in love with him. Anyway, so now flash forward 14 years, Calvin is Angela Wong's killer. And it comes out to light that all this time, Geo knew about it and never said a word. So she goes to jail. And this is one of the things I liked about this. It wasn't just a matter of tracking a killer. There was a lot of story, and that's one of the things I enjoyed. It wasn't just going after a killer. There was a nice story here. So now she goes to jail, and you get that piece of the story there of, like, you know, how she fares in jail, and, you know, how she gets by, gets along, and things that go on there, and still things that are going on outside and still happening from her past. And then she gets released and more things happen, and there's lots of, I don't want to say twists in this novel. I want to say there's more bends and curves and turns. So it enough to where that pace just keeps you kind of engaged in wanting to find out more, like, oh, that happened? Because there's like flashbacks. So you don't exactly know why Angela ended up buried in the woods behind Gio's house, dismembered. That's it. It unfolds. You know, it's like peeling the leaves of an onion, and then you get to the heart and the center, and that's where all the, things start. So it's just like a slow peeling away of the story. I enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. I'm going to check this author out and see what other things she wrote. If there's any other stories out there that, might be of interest, because I enjoyed this one. I'm going to give it 4 stars. It kept me on my toes. It was a page turner, and I wanted to keep going. So yeah, definitely going to check this out. This is Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. Let me know if you've read any of her books before. If you read this book, what did you think? And so let me know in the comments below, and let me know if you think about, let me know if you think this might be something you'd like to read. Okay, so that's my thoughts on that one. And let's go ahead and move to my next read. And you probably guess where I went to next in my travels here. So, all right, let's move along. All right, so continuing on my journey to read one Stephen King book a month. This month I chose to read The Shining. It was a good book. I don't know, to Stephen King, I haven't read a bad Stephen King book. Well, there was one many years ago I read. I think it's called Insomnia. That was kind of weird. Yeah. I do remember. And I still remember the book, so I guess that's a good thing. But these little people walking around cutting balloons off people's heads. And it was weird. Where am I going with this? There I go. Chris is going off on a tangent again. All right, let's talk about The Shining. All right, so The Shining it's a family, the Torransons. There's Jack, Wendy, and Danny, their son. Jack and Wendy and their son, Danny. So Jack is an alcoholic, he's an alcoholic. He's only a few months sober. And things in their life have been rocky because of his alcoholism, and he have a problem with anger, which stems from his childhood. So, just a lot of the book could be taken into like how domestic abuse and things like that can carry through from generation to generation, because, his father was abusive and kind of, stems from there. So he's an alcoholic. He's lost his job. He was a teacher. He's lost his job because he assaulted a student. He is an aspiring writer. He's got writer's block right now, and a former co-worker gets him this job as a caretaker at the Overlook Hotel, which is in the Colorado mountains. Now, and his wife and son are able to come there and stay, because the hotel closes for the winter months because of the snow and everything. But they need somebody to stay there and still kind of take care of the place while it's closed down. So he takes the job. And so I have to talk about Danny too, because Danny's a big part of this. So he takes this job. And Danny, the little boy who's only 5, which this is what kind of perplexed me in the book, is he's 5, but no 5-year-old. I was trying to picture like my own grandson when he was 5, like just thinking the way he thinks and talking, and I thought that was a little weird. But anyway, Danny has this gift. So I don't know if it's a gift or a curse, really. And come to find out, I didn't know this is how The Shining got its name, but it's called He's Got the Shine. And when you do a shining, you could kind of like project yourself into the thoughts of another, and he receives thoughts in futuristic of things that will happen because he's got this little friend called Tony that speaks to him, and he knows all about his father, his anger issues and the trouble in the marriage and all that stuff. Well, now they're at the hotel. And he befriends, when they first get there, the day they arrive, not all the staff is left. Well, the cook, Mr. Halloran, I can't remember if his name is Dick Halloran, I think. He recognizes the shine in Danny, and he talks to him about it, and he says, if you ever need help, you could just, bring on the shine, because he could shine too, so they can kind of like connect with each other. All right, there's so much about this book. All right, so this hotel has a past, and an evil past. In fact, the way Stephen King writes about this hotel, the hotel almost was another character in this book, because it comes alive. And he brings it to life, and the atmosphere and the creepiness of the things happening, and the slow turn of Jack. So basically, Jack, because of his anger and his past, and the evil that's in this house because of its past, kind of all start to come together, and then being isolated up in these mountains and the snow and whatnot. Jack starts losing his mind, and the house kind of takes over him, kind of like, possession. And things just get crazy, and the little boy is, seeing things, and it was creepy. It was a very creepy book. I remember vaguely the movie being creepy too. I mean, it has to be 25, 30 years since I've seen that movie. So, yeah, it's been a long time, at least. It was a good book. I like the way, like I said, I do like the way, again, Stephen King has that knack of bringing things to life, the people, the characters. Wasn't real crazy about the character of Wendy. She was meek and weak, and yeah, she didn't have much of anything, really. But Danny and Jack, the father, Jack Torrance, he was, it was good. It was good. You hear all the crazy thoughts of this mania that's starting to take over, and I mean, I don't want to go on much more without spoiling the story. I'm just trying to give you a basis. It's a spooky kind of haunted house type thing, and psychological. It's crazy. Yeah, it was a good book. I enjoyed it. Is it one of my favorite books I've read so far? No. From Stephen King, no. But definitely a solid 4-star read. I enjoyed it. Yeah, excellent book. Excellent book. I can't say any more other than it's excellent. And I'm glad, So far I'm on a good streak with the Stephen King books. I haven't read one that I've hated yet to date. I had to figure out how many I've read so far from Stephen King. I mean, obviously I've read Stephen King before I even started talking about the books I'm reading. And I gotta write that down one day. I want to start keeping a tally so I know where I'm at. I doubt in my lifetime I will finish all the books Stephen King has written. I don't know, is it 70 or 80 books? And a lot of them are short stories. But nonetheless, I will probably never read them all. And I know there's one I will never read, and that's Salem's Lot. Ain't gonna happen. Never. Never. Hell will freeze over before I read Salem's Lot. All right, so solid 4-star read for me. Enjoyed it very much. Yeah, it's a good book. So let me know if you've read The Shining, or if you plan on reading it, what you thought about it. Did you see the movie? I have such little memory of the movie. I don't even remember how the movie ended. I thought it ended differently than it did in this book, but I could be wrong because I don't really remember. Two scenes I remember in that movie, and only two. If you've seen the movie, the twin girls that were, like I said, this house has a nasty past. Two twin girls that were murdered in the house. I mean, in the hotel. That scene, they're at the end of the hall. In fact, my boyfriend and I stayed at a hotel in, where were we? Was it Pittsburgh? I think it was in Pittsburgh. And so we get off the elevator, make our turn to walk down to where our room is, and I was like, oh my God, it looked like that long hallway from The Shining, because it was like an older, type hotel that we were staying at. I actually took a picture of it. I sent it to my girlfriend. I said, does this look familiar? Would you be creeped out? Anyway, I digress. I'm, again, just chattering. And I remember that scene. And the other scene I remember when he's like knifing through the door and he sticks his head in and he's like, here's Johnny. That's all I remember of the movie. So I don't know if this book ended differently than the movie did. I'm not sure. Man, I might watch the movie now. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, that's The Shining by Stephen King. Enjoy it. And now I'll have to think about what I want to read next month. Anyway, so let's go ahead and talk about this next book I read. All right, so this next book is The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. Now, I have read one of her books before. It was the guest list, and I enjoyed it. It was a good book. This book, not so crazy about it. This book is about a woman, and her name is Francesca, and she's comes from a wealthy family. She's very, prominent and a prominent figure in society, and she is, very astute and kind of pretentious. I didn't care for her, but it doesn't matter that I didn't care for her because there's other people in the book. So the book is pretty much surrounded by Francesca, her husband Owen, a woman named Bella, and a young man named Eddie. So Francesca inherits her grandparents' manor, and it's situated on a large plot of land in the English coastal England, English area, English coastal. I can't, oh my God. I've had a bad day, so I'm trying very hard to get this done. The English coast, okay? We'll just call it that. And she inherits this property. She comes back and she turns it into a boutique hotel. Very, very affluent and fancy, and she's turned it into like a retreat for people, where they can just come relax and be one with nature in this beautiful countryside. And it's a very, very bougie, ritzy place. And the people who live in this area are not happy about it, but that's neither here nor there. I'm trying to think how I want to proceed with this, but all right. So there's a lot of back and forth and in between with this book. It goes back to an incident that took place 15 years ago at this manor. It jumps forward to a detective investigating a death that has occurred. They found a dead body on the beach. And these four characters, each telling a story throughout the book, going back and forth. You know what? I just didn't like this book. It was disjointed. It was confusing at times. We're going back to Francesca 15 years prior. We're going to present day, and then just a little before the incident that happens at the manor. How these people are all intertwined with each other. I mean, Francesca's married to Owen, but Owen has a story too, as well as Bella and Eddie, and they all come together. They're all related to the same incident and person. Yeah, I don't have much to say about the book. It was very confusing. I didn't care for it. Like I said, each person is telling a story. And I didn't like that way of writing. I would prefer one person or even possibly two people narrating what's going on, but to have these four people telling four different stories and what happened 15 years ago and how it's playing out today. Basically the whole premise of the book is your past catching up with you. Trying to think what else I could tell you about it. So basically, we're preparing for this big grand gala opening of this manor, and the whole time you're just jumping in 15 years ago, and it's all over the place. The book was all over the place. I didn't care for it. I liked that first book I read, The Guest List. I thought that was really good, but this one I could not. And the way the ending all came together, I was like, what? So yeah, The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley, that was a dud for me. I'm going to give it 2 stars. There was many times during the book I thought I should just stop listening to this book. I should stop. Just stop. And I didn't. I should have DNF'd the book. Because, I can't even talk about it because there wasn't much to tell. And it was so confusing, I can't seem to get it straight to tell you about it. So yeah, I didn't care for it. 2 stars, maybe 1. I'll give it 2. I'll give it 2 because I listened to the whole book. A 1 would be a DNF, right? It should have been a DNF for me. Yeah, so, I don't know. Anybody else read this book? What did you think of it? Were you confused? Did you think it was like all over the place? There was no flow. It didn't flow at all. Yeah, so there's that. Anyway, I also read, because I finished that book, it was fairly early in the morning, and I thought, well, I was just going to pick another book to read, and I came across this book. Basically what I do is I go on my Audible, and I look at, what's trending, what's recommended for you, and I just see what maybe jumps out and looks interesting. And I don't know how this one jumped out, but it was a short story. I think it's only in print. It's about 200 pages. It was called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And I thought, okay, I'm going to read this. And I'm glad I did. This isn't like, my usual. It's not a mystery. There's no plot. It is a book of, it could be a lot of things to a lot of people, depending on when you're reading it and how you're reading it. It's kind of like a fable. And it could be about self-discovery. I guess it is kind of about self-discovery, about following your dreams, following your heart. It was just really good. Like I said, it was like a fable, a little bit of a fairy tale. So basically, the book starts out with Santiago, and he's a young shepherd who lives in Spain. And he falls asleep under this sycamore tree that's like growing out of the church that's there. And every time he falls asleep under this tree, he has the same dream, the dream of finding a treasure. And it bothers him that he keeps having this dream, like, is there some kind of meaning to this dream? And one day he decides, he stops and speaks to the local gypsy. And the gypsy tells him that your treasure's out there, you need to go get it. And she tells him it's in Egypt at the base of the pyramids. So he sets out to follow his dream, and along the way he meets a lot of different people, characters, and he learns a lot of life lessons along the way. He first meets up with an old king and, gives him sage advice, and then he sells his flock of sheep, and he ends up in another town, and he works for a shopkeeper. I think he's like crystal. He sells crystal to earn money because he was robbed in Tangier. This was in Tangier, as he's making his way across to the pyramids in Egypt. And each person teaches him something. Each person in the story represents something. There's a lot of symbolism used. One of the quotes I really love from the book was, and I got to read it because I wrote it down, was, when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you achieve it. So this book also had a lot of, I don't know if you've ever heard or read the book, or there's actually a short video on it too. It's called The Secret. About the universe, being one with your universe, and listening to cues and following signs will bring abundance to your life. He learns about love. He learns about following his heart and understanding what that means. It was a nice book. You know what? It was worth the time to listen to it. It's very thought-provoking and can be inspiring. And I guess it depends on at what point in your life you may read the book. You probably read different things or get different messages from it. It was a good book. I really enjoyed Santiago. He starts out as just, a poor shepherd, and he grows and learns things about himself, about the world, about life along the way through his journey to find this treasure. I would highly recommend the book. It was a light read. It wasn't deep, or in involve like, oh, it's too philosophical, I can't, it's too much. It was yes, it is philosophical, but it's light and it's understandable. It's very readable for anybody. um so I enjoyed it, and I would highly recommend the book. I thought it was very, very good. Yeah, so that is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. So let me know if you've read that one, if you've heard about it, or if it's on your list to read. It, I'm curious. Has anybody out there read the book, and what were your thoughts on it? It was a lovely story, and like I said, 200 pages. It's well worth the read. It take you a couple hours to whip through it, and yeah, see what you get out of it. But yeah, I enjoyed it very much. All right. Oh, what am I going to rate this book? Stars. I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it a solid 4 stars. It was good. Good story. So yeah, let me know if you've heard of it or if you've read it. And let's go ahead and talk about this next book that I read. This next book I read is the 8th book in a series by Anna Lou Weatherly. It's the Detective Dan Riley series. I found this, I think it was about a year ago, actually. Some of the books were free on Audible, like the first 3 or 4 were free. And I got wrapped up in them, and, I really liked this series. Anyway, this 8th book is What Kind of Mother? If you're interested, the first book in the Detective Dan Riley series is Black Heart. If you like, well, let's talk about the book first. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so it starts out, it's Connor and Paris, and they're young kids, like they're 18 years old, and they're kind of boyfriend or girlfriend, just starting out, that sort of thing. And they're outside a club one night, and not like right out front of the club, more like in the back of the club outside, doing kid things. And Connor gets up and he walks away for a minute to go to the bathroom or whatnot, and he hears like this commotion and whatever, and he comes over, and his girlfriend Paris is being like verbally and almost physically assaulted by some guy. And things progress, and she's like beating the crap out of him, and he steps in and knocks him out, whatever, and they flee, not knowing if, they even maybe killed him. So the next morning, at Connor's house, his mom, Christine, she wakes up and she sees the 2 kids are both there, and the clothes are bloody, and the girl's crying. He's visibly upset, and the dad comes down, and yada yada, and come to find out, the guy outside the nightclub is dead. Well, Christine doesn't want to believe that her son did it, and Eddie, the father, he's been in prison, but nice guy though. He's not this mom and dad aren't like trashy people, but they're, hardworking, lower middle class people just trying to raise their son, and working hard. And Paris is the daughter of a very prominent family where they live, and they end up coming to the house to talk, and Yeah, and all this stuff, and trying to cover things up and say, we're not going to say anything, not going to the cops, whatever. So there's the basis of that story, is like the murder of this young boy, Connor and his parents, and Paris and her very affluent parents, and then there's Detective Dan Riley. So what I like about the Detective Dan Riley stories is he's a nice detective. He's got heart, he's got compassion, and you just like him. He's just very likable. And even though these are kind of like detective stories, they're also thriller mystery, but it's not real super technical detective stories. It's not all like cop business. So I just enjoy this series very, very much. If you like that, detective stories, I highly recommend the Detective Dan Riley series by Anna Lou Weatherly. They're just entertaining. They're good. They're page turners. They're not like, oh my God, blow you out of the water type book or stories. They're just really good. Yeah, fully enjoyed this one. I'm giving it 4 stars, and I'm looking forward to the book's number 9. This one just came out in February, so in fact, I didn't even know it was coming out, and I have her as one of my authors that I follow because I liked all the other books so much. I thought, well, let me get on the follow list, and I was never notified that there was a new book. So what's up with that? Okay. I see how you are, Audible. But anyway, I was glad I found it because, yeah, it's a good story. In fact, I don't even think I paid for it. I think this book was free, too. I know the first 4 right now are not free. But, yeah. Good series. Detective Dan Riley. Let's move on to the next book. You just can't have a good streak all the time. The next book I read is called The Last One by Will Dean, also known as The Last Passenger. So I don't know why there's 2 names. They're both the same book, but the Audible version is called The Last One. You guys, I don't know. Maybe I should have DNF'd it. I don't know. Kaz and her boyfriend Pete, they're going on a cruise. This starts out, I'm not telling you anything I'm giving anything away, because this is like in the very first pages of the book. They're going on a cruise. And first night, they go to bed. She wakes up in the morning. She's looking for Pete. Pete's not there. Pete, she can't find him. So she decides to, put some clothes on and goes off to check to see maybe if he went to breakfast or something. Well, as she's walking through the ship, she notices everybody on the ship is gone. It's empty. There's no captain anymore. There's no stewards. Everybody's gone. She's on this ship by herself and has no idea what happened. Okay, so, when you read the synopsis of the book, I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting, right? I was just disappointed. Another little tidbit, not really giving anything away. Shortly thereafter, she does come across another person on the ship. And it ends up there's 4 of them left on this ship. And it just gets weird from there. I can't tell you anymore because that will reveal the big twist in it. Basically, they're on this ship and they need to survive on the ship. I didn't like the characters. I thought the main character, Kaz, was very weak. I didn't like her. I didn't like her. And I didn't like the other 3 characters either. They were boring, and there was nothing interesting about them. I didn't get a good sense of like atmosphere, being alone on this stranded ship by themselves. And maybe I should have DNF'd it. I don't know. So there was the big twist was revealed early on. It's pretty early in the story. Which was a disappointment to me. Yeah. I mean, toward the end, a couple more twists came out, but they were nothing like, wow, wow, that was a good one, Those kind of twists that kind of like, leave you like, oh, I never thought something like that would happen. It wasn't like that. Yeah, I didn't care for the book. I'm struggling. So I use Storygraph to, track my books and whatnot. And I gave it 3 stars there, but I'm struggling even with 3 stars. I'm going to stick with 3 stars and be generous. Yeah. I think it could have been better. I just felt like it could have been better. I thought the writing was kind of blasé. Yeah. So that's The Last One by Will Dean. Has anybody else read it? What did you think? Did you just get the same kind of feeling like, just kind of, okay, nothing to write home about? All right, so that's that, and we're going to go on and talk about this next book that I read. All right, so this next book, I absolutely loved it. It was just a really good book. And that's I Am the Messenger by Markus Zusak. Markus Zusak is best known for his book, The Book Thief. I read that many, many years ago. It's a good book. If you haven't read it, give it a read. This book is older too. I think it's like from 2006. My brother suggested it to me. He gives me lots of book suggestions, and some of them are, up my alley, and others, not so much. But this one's kind of piqued my interest. So Ed Kennedy, he's 19 years old. He drives a cab. This is all around the setting in Australia. And he's kind of, he's not a bad kid. He's just kind of unmotivated, okay? Drives his cab, plays cards with his friends in his house or one of the friends' house. They meet up, they have card games. He's in love with his best friend, Audrey. Kind of like just a low-key life, doesn't do much of anything, right? He doesn't get along with his mother very well, and but his life takes a turn. One day he's in a bank with his friends, and there's a bank robbery, and he ends up stopping the robbery and catching the thief, and and has his 5 minutes of fame, so to speak. Well, just after that, he gets a playing card in the mail, and it's the Ace of Diamonds. And from that point on, his life just starts to take a turn. So on these cards, there's always 3 people listed on the card. And he's kind of has to set out on a journey to find out, what am I being sent this for and why? And through these cards that he receives in the mail, as soon as he completes the one card, a new journey begins because another card arrives. And it just plays out like that. And he's finding people and having to figure out, why am I being sent to them? hence I am the messenger. So it's just, I just love this book. I loved the characters in this book. It's somewhat of a mystery because through the book you got to find out, well, why is he getting these cards, and he's trying to figure out, why am I getting these cards and who is sending them to me and for what reason. And it's cheeky, it's funny, it's, even though the characters in the book are all about 19, 20 years old, you don't feel like it's not juvenile, and the characters aren't really juvenile. Yeah, and he's got his dog, the doorman. He talks to the dog, and dog kind of talks back, but in his head, of course, he's not really a talking dog. It was just a really good story, and it was just nice to see how through each person he had to encounter, what change he brought to their lives, and how that change kind of made a difference in his life. And it's a great story. And like I said, it's a bit of a mystery, and yeah. So I don't know. Let me know if you've read this book, or even if you read The Book Thief. I'm just curious and what you think of this author, Markus Zusak. And yeah, good book. I am going to give this 5 stars. It left me feeling just in a good mood. And I think one of the things I loved about it was just the cheekiness of it, like, the dialogue between the characters. And I love the growth of Eddie. I thought that was just, yeah, very well written, great book. And I would recommend this book to people if you like that sort of, if that fits the genre you like, check it out. It was a really good book. I Am the Messenger by Markus Zusak. Alrighty, so let's go on to the next book. Okay, let's talk about this next book. It's called Love Mom by Iliana Xander. In the book, it starts out, famous author E.G. Renge dies in an accident. And survivors are her daughter, Mackenzie, and her husband, Ben. So, Mackenzie narrates most of the story, and she doesn't feel any loss for her mother. The relationship was kind of weird, strained. There were problems in the marriage with Ben and Elizabeth. So, but weird things start to happen. A man shows up at the house. He has like an argument with Mackenzie's father. And she didn't really understand what was going on, but she couldn't figure out what are they arguing about. And a detective showed up, and the grandmother chases the detective away. So she's suspicious. And then she gets a letter in the mail. Well, not really. It was like slipped under the door. And on the outside of the envelope, all it said was, #1 fan, XOXO. She opens it up. There's a couple pages inside. And it's kind of read in like a little bit of a story format. And it's signed Love Mom. So she's like, what is this? And she turns to her best friend, EJ, and they start talking about, this letter. And she starts doing a little bit of like snooping around the house for clues. She gets yet another letter with some more continuation of a story. And again, signed Love Mom. So the story proceeds with Mackenzie and her best friend EJ. They're trying to piece all this together. These letters she's getting from Mom, kind of written in like a diary format, and doesn't know who's sending them. And it just takes them on a journey of uncovering secrets and lies, and betrayals, and that's all I could really tell you about that because I don't want to give too much of the story away. But therein lies the mystery of who's sending these letters, why are they signed Love Mom, and from number one fan. I don't know how to feel about this book. I liked it. I think it was just, I think it could have been better. It could have been more mysterious, I guess, than it was. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give the book 3.5 stars. It held my attention, but I always felt like throughout the book I was waiting for something exciting to happen. And that never really came. So it was an okay book. You know, check out the synopsis on it. I don't know if I would recommend it to people. Say, oh my God, it was so good. It was okay. I think there was a lot of missed opportunities in the book, you know, in the writing. I think it could have been a little bit more exciting, I guess. It was kind of slow in the sense that, you know, you're getting these letters every day, and that's kind of mysterious since, you know, your mom is dead. So yeah, it was just that part it was a little disappointing because I think the story could have had more guts to it than it did. It was kind of all surface level, but anyway, that's Love Mom by Iliana Xander. All right, so let's go on and check out this next book I read. All right, so the next book that I read was The Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. This was a good book. However, I didn't think, as I was listening to it, I thought, I'm not liking this book. I'm not liking it. But then it grew on me. And this book is part of a series. It's a 2-book series. The second book is out. It's the Crimson Moth series. And now I can't remember the name of the second book. Oh, I should have known that, but I should have noted that down before I... Anyway, first book is The Heartless Hunter. So it's about witches. So there's a bit of magic in here. So the book starts out, Rune is our main character here, and she is a young girl, a young witch, and she was raised by her grandmother, who was a witch. And Rune's parents were not witches, so it was a little unusual that Rune was a witch, because usually one parent has to carry the witch bloodline in order to produce another witch. But sometimes it will skip generations, or it'll just like manifest itself. So Rune was raised by her grandmother because her parents died. And they live on an island. I think the island's called Wintersea. I think. I just finished it. You know, I need to start taking notes. Anyway, and it has used to be run by witch queens. And so there was a revolution, and all the witches it was kind of reminded me of the Salem witch hunts. They were hunted down and purged and killed and dethroned. Well, Rune, by the wishes of her grandmother, wanted her to turn her in because she felt that Rune was at risk of harboring or being a sympathizer to witches. And she knew that the grandmother was going to be caught, and she didn't want Rune in any danger. So she begged Rune to turn her over to the Blood Guard and to save herself, because she didn't want Rune to get in trouble. So she did, and she was devastated by what she did to her grandmother, even though it was her grandmother's wishes that she do so. And at the time, Rune didn't know she was a witch. It wasn't until after that her grandmother passed that she discovered she was a witch. And in the meantime, she became the Crimson Moth, where she would go and find other witches and help them escape and off the island and smuggle them onto ships and everything to get them away. Well, part of her plan in doing this is kind of fraternizing with the people of the revolution, and what I didn't understand was Rune was like a socialite. So, and I didn't understand in the book how that came to be, where she became to be like, you know, a woman of status. But whatever, she was. So she used to like mingle with these people to get their secrets and help herself find witches and get them out of harm's way. Now, one of the greatest hunters of witches is Gideon. And Gideon is one of Rune's best friend's brother. One of her best friends is Alex. She hates Gideon. She despises him. And Gideon never liked her either. He just thought she was like a selfish, spoiled brat. Well, he is like the best witch hunter. And he is trying to catch the Crimson Moth. So to devise one of her plans is to get close to Gideon, so as to kind of keep herself undercover and help other witches. And he, in turn, gets tipped off by people he's around, saying, oh, maybe it's Rune's the Crimson Moth, and, you know, you should get to know her and see if it could be her. Well, through this cat and mouse, they're going back and forth. They develop feelings for each other, even though neither one of them really want to say that they're developing feelings for each other, but they are. And so through this whole cat and mouse and chasing, and many times Rune almost gets caught, and they do fall in love. And things start to get a little bit, you know, I can't go in any more than this, but that's the gist of the story. It was enjoyable. I did enjoy it. Like I said, in the beginning, I thought, oh, I don't know if I'm listening to it, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to like this. It wasn't piquing my interest at all. And then as it carried on, I got a little bit more like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, she's going to get away. What's she going to do? So I did start to, yeah. So I ended up enjoying the story very much, and I'm looking forward to reading the next book. Again, I will wait, because I'm curious to see, by the way this ended, I'm curious to see how the next book and the last book in the Crimson Moth series kind of transpires, or, you know, goes along. So yeah, I am looking forward to reading that next book. And I apologize that I did not write down the name of that book. And it's in my head too, because I actually have both of those books. Both the books were on my list of books that I wanted to read, and I can't remember the second book. Anyway, Martha from Martha's Fragrance Corner. In fact, she just read the second book. So anyway, I am giving this book, I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I wouldn't say it for what I base a 4-star, 5-star read on. I wouldn't say this met everything for me as a 4-star, but I definitely better than average, because 3 is an average read for me. So I'm going 3.5 on it, and I am looking forward to the follow-up on this book here. So yeah, that's the, oh my God, I wanted to call it the Crimson Moth. No, that's not it. Heartless Hunter. Oh my God, the Heartless Hunter. I wonder if it's the Crimson Moth is the second book. I don't remember. Anyway, the Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. Anyway, check it out, or let me know if you've read it. and what you thought about it. All right, so let's move on to this next book here. All right, so let's wrap this video up with these last two books that I read. The first one is The Last Party by A.R. Torre. Like this book. This book is about Perla, Grant, and their daughter, Sophie. Now, Perla comes off as the, devoted mother. She's super mom and wonderful wife. They live in this gated community in Pasadena, so they're very affluent people in the social status world. Now, but Perla's got like a dark past and some dark obsessions. One being Leawood Fulcrum, and he is a convicted killer. He killed 2 young girls at a birthday party like 20 some years ago. And she's obsessed with him. So much so that she wants to recreate the same scenario with her own daughter. So, yeah, the story unfolds from there. It is part you're listening to Perla go through her thoughts and how she's going to do things. And then you hear Leawood Fulcrum's story as told through him being interviewed by a psychology major, trying to dig to why did you do this, and did you do it, the motives behind it, trying to get into the mind of this killer. Now, it's a dark story, yeah, the theme behind it is very dark. I enjoy dark stories, though. I'm a little weird like that. I like things that are a little twisted. So this was definitely twisted, and it had a good twist in there. I think it could be easily kind of, figured out. But that being said, it was, it was a good twist. I enjoyed the story. It was a medium paced. It wasn't super fast. I like the way the flow of the book. I like the way the writer took it and brought you through the minds of the characters. I thought it was really, I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't like super like, oh my God, this book, oh, whoa, so good, so good. It was a good book. I enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to people if you like dark stories in, thrillers, dark themes. It was a dark theme, and I enjoyed it. Anyway, so that was The Last Party by A.R. Torre. Now, the last book that I read for the month was You Killed Me First by John Marrs. Now, this book, it took me a while. As I'm listening to it, I'm like, I'm not getting into this book. Like, it didn't grab me early. However, I was on a long car ride, and so there was I wasn't going to be like trying to find another. It was a done deal. So as I'm listening to it, I'm like, come on, let's move this along. But I'd say when it got to the last 4 hours, when it hit that 4-hour mark, 4 hours left in the book, and I think that's where the twist was kind of revealed. At that point, I was like, oh, really? Because I didn't see that part coming. So, yeah. So I guess it was a slow start. We'll call it a slow start. But I kept with it, and I'm glad I did, because in the end, I really did enjoy the book. But let me tell you what the book's about. So it's Margot, Anna, and Liv. Now, Margot is kind of like a washed up TV star, but she still thinks, she's a star. And she's shallow and just, thinks a lot of herself, even though she's a nobody now. And then there's Anna, quiet, shy, kind of meek, mild. And then Liv moves into their community. Now, the book starts out, there's a bonfire, and somebody is tied up in this bonfire. They wake up and realize where they're at. And they're like, what is happening? How am I going to get out of here? Somebody's got to help me. They're in a bonfire. They're going to be burned alive. That's how it starts. And then it backtracks 11 months. So then the book starts 11 months before the bonfire. So you start going through each of these characters and what they're about and then 10 months before, 9 months before, and bringing you all the way through to the end of the book of who's in the bonfire and why are they there. So yeah, I I enjoyed it. Again, that the epilogue starts really good, right? Like, oh, somebody's in a bonfire, you don't know what's happening. And then it goes into the monthly reading of each of these women. So that's where it kind of slowed up a little bit. It was kind of like a little boring. And each woman has a story, each woman has secrets, and it starts to all get pieced together. And but in the end, I did enjoy the book. I gave it 3.5 stars. I thought it was good. It was different. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Now, John Marrs, he wrote the book, I believe he wrote The One. And I read that book as well. And it was okay. It wasn't like, didn't, knock my socks off. I was like, wow, that was great. Fantastic. So I don't know how I feel about this writer. A lot of the books, I have another book of his on my list that I would like to get and read in the future, but I'm not so sure yet. It seems like when I compare this to the other book, The One, they're kind of slow burns. And they do come together at some point, but not enough to where, I was talking with Martha about that, about how sometimes a slow burn, turns out to be a fantastic book. And both those books, this one included, were they start out slow. And even though in the end I truly enjoyed it, it wasn't like a wow, to enough to compensate for everything that came before it, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's You Killed Me First by John Marrs, and I'm giving it 3.5 stars. So that's my wrap up for the month of April. Again, it was a good month. I didn't have any books where like I hated or DNF'd. So yeah, good month. What have you read this month? Did you have a favorite? I haven't chosen my favorite yet, and I have to sit back and look at it and kind of, go through a mental process. So I haven't chosen my favorite yet. I have an idea. It might be I Am the Messenger, but again, 12 books. I need to kind of refresh at this point because I have long since kind of forgotten what I read. Anyway, so yeah, what are you currently reading? Did you have a favorite that you read that I might enjoy? Yeah, let me know in the comments below. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I appreciate you, and I appreciate the time you take out of your day and your lives and your busy schedules, and you watch a video I've uploaded, because yeah, I can't even tell you how much that means to me. It means everything, because I know life is busy, and it's sometimes hard to, take time and watch a video. And so I do. I appreciate you. Please comment, like, and subscribe. Helps my channel grow. I'm trying to get to my 1,000 subscribers, so I would truly appreciate a comment, a like, and a subscribe. And anyway, so you have a great day, great weekend, whenever you happen to be watching, and we will chat again real soon. Bye.